All right, hello everyone. It is Allison from AllisonRaves.co, and today I am interviewing someone who was able to turn. She was able to monetize her mission. So she was able to monetize her ministry in a way that allowed her to be able to serve more people and serve people in a more powerful way. This is something that we deal with all the time in business, where people feel this guilt around selling something, but really you can serve people more powerfully when you're charging a price that leads them to take action and get actual results. So today we are talking with Laurel from Affirm Fundraising, and she's someone who really personifies this problem where she has an actual ministry and a mission and a purpose, and she also has to make a living so she can continue to grow and serve more people. And so I want to share her story with you guys and how she was able to do that and stay in integrity. So I'm going to bring her on, let her introduce herself, ask her 1 million questions, and if you guys are watching the replay or you're watching this live, make sure you ask questions too. We're going to come back and interact with you. With all that said, let's bring Laurel on. There she is. Wow, you come on so fast. Hello, Laurel. So I've just given a very brief introduction into who you are, but can you tell us who you are in your own words? Give us your spiel.
And you did a great job, by the way. If I wasn't waiting for you on the stream, I was like, yeah. Like, oh, right, that's me. Okay. So I'm Laurel O'Connor. I own Affirm Fundraising, which is a blog and coaching consulting business aimed mostly at churches and ministries to help them use their assets in ways that they can monetize. So focusing on what they're good at, building strengths, and stopping with the scarcity mindset. That's my big thing, is pulling churches away from scarcity and chicken barbecues.
Yes.
Nothing against chicken barbecues. And pushing them towards thinking more creatively about where their strengths are.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about your pitch when we were first getting to know each other, because I was in a church band for over 10 years, and so I was very involved in the community and knew kind of the struggles that they dealt with financially. And, we would have the church was located on a freeway, so it could potentially have high traffic, but we were doing things like, giant garage sales every year, and we were ecstatic to raise, $1,000.
Yeah.
And so Laurel teaches a much better way for churches to be able to support themselves, churches and ministries and nonprofits. So we're going to dive into all of that. And I guess my first question is where did you come from? How did you get into this?
I never envisioned myself a fundraiser, although sometimes I still don't. But I really fell into it after I graduated seminary. I was asked by what's called the conference for my church, which is about 900 churches in the New York State area, not including New York City. They asked me to fundraise $1 million for malaria research. They got a grant for a position, and I was thrust headfirst into it. It was only a 1.5-year position, but it was transformative and exhausting and amazing. I got to see so many different churches and so many different approaches. A few years later, after I had spent time in a couple of different fields, I realized that the knowledge that I had learned there was really transferable into any church or any organization I'd find myself in. So I started actually by writing a book before there was a blog or a website or anything, just to kind of get everything out. And now I just want to share it with the world.
Yeah. And so the knowledge that went into that book and the knowledge that made you qualified to raise over $1 million, where did that knowledge come from? Did that just come from working with the churches and learning about them, or did you have a background in finance or something?
My background is more in community organizing, which is very transferable when you're talking about building capacity and strength. But then there were a lot of trainings offered through the position. I'm a United Methodist, and so there's United Methodist Communications brought us to Nashville for a week and trained us on different organizing and fundraising strategies. And some of them I found along the way, that 1.5 years of on-the-job training, what works and what doesn't, and how messaging is important and what speaks to people, and how you have to build relationships before you can start to fundraise, and the difference between quantity over quality. There's a lot of traffic, sure, but is it something that's going to be more than just a one-time deal? How are you going to be able to cultivate long-term givers, legacy givers, those sorts of things? A lot of that was boots on the ground, just figuring out what works.
Yeah. And so you put all this information in a book, and then what?
And then I put it on Amazon and hoped for the best.
Yeah, that was the whole
And
process.
it did become a #1 Amazon bestseller thanks
Awesome.
to some friends of mine. And Amazon doesn't ask if the book is free when it becomes a bestseller. But it was really exciting that many people wanted to read it, even if it was free for just a minute. And so I put it on Amazon, and my parents bought it, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I started to build a website. I started to build a presence, and it was very slow from there.
Yeah. For those of you who are starting to hop on, we're talking with Laurel today, who was able to monetize her mission in a really unique way, and we're kind of diving into her story now. And so you had the book, became an Amazon bestseller, doesn't matter how. And I feel
I
like
hope it's okay that I said that out loud.
Oh yeah, of course it is. I mean, I think we all like the bottom line is it's an Amazon bestseller, and it's easy to say. Like I remember, this is like a mindset thing, like downplaying our wins. Where I remember,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah, this is. I mean, and we do
Oh,
this all
you
the
got
time,
me.
and I know you have all these reasons why it's not really a bestseller, why you don't consider it a real bestseller. But I remember, I had a coach in 2019 who really encouraged me to like talk about those numbers and talk about those brags, and it is like a mindset thing. Like we have to be able to recognize those wins. It doesn't matter if your parents helped you to get to an Amazon #1 bestseller. It's still an Amazon #1 bestseller. Just because I have a big sales month. So my first like 5-figure month was $14,000 when my audience was 300 people, and I didn't collect $14,000 of cash that month.
Right.
Because I had payment plans and people who were signing up for like long-term coaching packages, and but that didn't matter. It's just like it's from a business and marketing perspective, you had a $14,000 sales month, and you track sales differently than cash. So anyway, you're an Amazon #1 bestseller. Let's not downplay that.
Woo!
So you have this
You got
book.
me. Nice.
And then what made you? So you might have probably eventually gotten some book sales, but what was the next step to like? Because I know God wasn't calling you to have a book that got a few sales. He was calling you to something bigger. And so what did that look like? How did you know that like that book launch wasn't it? And then what did you do next?
Well, after I wrote the book and said, well, what now? I remember pushing myself to try to get an online presence by the time I finished the book, but then I felt really overwhelmed. And so I built a website. I know how to do from life
It's a
experience.
beautiful
Every
website,
every Thank you.
affirmfundraising.com. It's a beautiful website.
Thank you. Pretty much every church I've been to, I've made a website for them. It's just not something that churches intuitively know how to do. And so I made a website and I started to blog, and I dabbled in a couple of courses to see how to grow. I felt like I was fumbling my way through. To be honest, if I got one client, which I love her and I'm so grateful. And that started me realizing how much I enjoyed the coaching and consulting piece.
Mm-hmm.
That the blog was great and I love writing, but I'd much rather work one-on-one with people or in a group.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until like last year, which was the beginning of year 2, when I started seeing your stuff and started paying more attention to, I had to shift out of the framework that I was using and into something different. And that made a huge difference to my business model and the amount of clients that I have and the amount of energy that I feel around what I'm doing. And
So how were you trying to get clients? Like before we connected, so you purchased a couple courses and you started the blog and the website, you had that experience, but how were you trying to get clients?
I'm going to be honest, I felt a little bit like an MLM where I would just ask my friends and family.
Yeah.
Although that is not what all MLM people do, but
Yeah.
it's like this,
Do you know someone? Do you know someone?
yeah, where you swim in the small pool that you know of people that you know are more likely to say yes because you're afraid to talk to other people. And not only that, you don't even know what you're asking them for. So my first client was for a more ongoing basis, but I figured that there had to be a better way than just kind of opening the doors wide open and saying, we'll work together as long as you want to. So I didn't really know what I was selling except for the book. I didn't know how to get clients except for there were 2 or 3 people that I knew needed help in the space that I was offering. And so I did work short term, but they weren't always the right fit. And it was just clunky.
Yeah. And so you and I connected probably through blogging, because I think we both purchased a course that I think that's how we connected. And I was probably, when people join my free group, I usually message them, or if they're from a group where I know that we have a lot of things in common, I might message them, and hopefully my messages don't feel MLM-y, but it has historically been a big part of how I connect with people. So I'm guessing I did that. And what made you reach out or become interested in the small audience sales system course specifically compared to other things you'd probably seen me launch? What piqued your interest about SaaS?
Well, honestly, it was before SaaS, it was more that you piqued my interest. And I think that plays into SaaS a bit, where you were personable and you seemed genuinely interested, and I think you are as a person, in what I was building and what my ministry looked like. I hopped on one of your free calls and got to see how you present, and I just kept seeing you. And was like, I've got to do this. In small audience sales system, I was drawn to it because it basically said you don't have to have a blog to make money. Like, do you need to know what you're selling? Do you need to know who you're selling it to? Nuts and bolts. I didn't want to get bogged down like I had been before with other courses about complex funnels and upsells. And I think I might eventually use some of those.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to work one-on-one with people to start out of the gates. And it was the once a week call with you. And then I was like the first person in so I could get your freebie.
Yeah.
It was a one-on-one coaching call. And I just felt your presence and felt how much you cared and felt like this was a different approach than I had tried.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what, I'm probably some of you guys watching this have heard my story, and certainly I'm sure you saw my story where in 2017 when I started coaching, I've been blogging since 2011, but it takes a lot of time and it's a lot of writing, and I wasn't ranking for anything, and I just kind of had gotten lucky here and there and made some money. But when I started coaching in 2017, I went the complete opposite direction where I just invested a ton to create these complex funnels that led to sales, like webinars that led to sales calls. And I didn't know how to take a sales call. I didn't know how to optimize a funnel, even though I figured out how to create one. And I made $7,000 that year, which is like, wow, that's a lot of money to make your first year of coaching.
Yeah.
But I spent 15. So I felt really devastated about that at the time. And then when I pivoted my coaching in 2019, I realized I didn't need any of that. And I just started posting from my heart and wanting to teach and it was coming from a place of, I had purchased a couple of courses that I didn't think were that great. And I was just seeing, I never said I was going to coach bloggers or that I was going to do this or that, but I just kept seeing like, oh, these people are so close. And so I just started writing about it. And I started getting coaching clients from doing that. And that's where this process came from. So you have a similar story where you're building all these assets and still don't quite know the offer or the price point or how to get clients. And so you jumped into the small audience sales system. And then what happened?
I got connected with an amazing network of people who were taking the course with me. The Facebook group was amazing in terms of your responsiveness and Maddie's responsiveness and getting questions answered. But then the weekly call where you got to see where everybody else was, but you still felt like you were an individual and that your story and that your issues, it was a mini group. It was a coaching call.
Yeah.
And that's so much different than the asynchronous stuff where you just go through and watch the content and good luck. where I actually got to talk to you and say, well, this is where I'm stuck. Or a client just came to me yesterday. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to charge. I don't know what to offer. What do we do? And it was that practical, as things happened, that was super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're doing it the same way. We start our coaching calls in December. And so, like, how did you? So you ended up getting some clients while in SaaS, and then later we moved you into the Monetization Accelerator program, and you did more. But when you were in SaaS, tell me about the first client you got.
So when I first started SaaS, I connected with some Facebook groups of people who were in my niche and, close, like the next circle of people that I would know. And suddenly I found out that there's a group of clergy specifically who are looking for some of the things that I'm offering, specifically starting a 501c3 as a funding avenue. And so the first client that I got, and I actually put the price point and tried really hard not to apologize for charging money. I didn't do great the first time or the second time, but I was really excited. I remember coming to the next coaching call and jumping up and down that it was a 6-month coaching package. And instead of what I was doing before, where I was like, well, maybe if I charge this much per hour and then I do 1 hour every other week. No. This was a package with a dollar amount assigned to it. And I felt so much more grounded in that, especially if it turns out that it's a client that's not a good fit. Having it just go forever didn't seem like a good fit to me. I want to make sure that the client gets what they need, but then we can reevaluate at 6 months and say, okay, is this still working? Is there someone else I can connect you with? Those sorts of things. It just felt so much better because I didn't feel like I was hounding people.
Yeah. And I think that's an important part of the program too. And where people struggle is, first of all, like, what should I sell? And so a lot of people have an idea on what they're going to sell. I'm going to sell a book. I'm going to sell coaching. But a huge mistake that a lot of services and coaches make is charging an hourly rate, which is fine, but it's not helpful for you as a business. And it's not that helpful for the client because the client doesn't have to commit. And you don't know, your income is totally unpredictable. So we always optimize what you're selling, not just decide what to sell, but optimize how you're selling it so it serves you and the client better. And you've done that, and you've also raised your prices, which is amazing.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
Yeah,
it made sense.
What happened when you told someone your higher price for the first time?
They didn't bat an eye at all. And it was really hard, but I knew that the amount of work I was putting in and what I was offering, it was too low.
Yeah.
It didn't mean it was pennies, not for me anyway, but increasing it based on the fact that I had a decent docket of clients. And now we're kind of moving to the next level of services where I did my first set of webinars for a group of clergy and laity in the New York area. Like, as things progress, I think it's okay to raise your prices.
Yeah.
Because the more I can put in more time and serve more if I'm not trying to do 2 or 3 or 4 side hustles while I'm trying to serve clients to make ends meet.
That was actually my next question, is how has creating the service and charging a better price for it, like, how has that changed your ministry so far? How's it impacted your ministry?
Well, so far, it has made it so that I can lose one of my part-time jobs, which is nice. I don't think my goal is to work full-time with the business, but my goal is to work and only have like 2 things going on.
Instead of 20.
I have a lot of stuff going on anyway, but this way I like having one foot in the church so that I can stay grounded in what that reality is.
Mm-hmm.
And then keeping one foot in the business world, which is why I love working with you, because coming from the business world, you give me language that I add to the churchiness and that churches should be paying attention to in terms of practices. And so that's why I think the connection works really well. And I was thinking about when I first started, I created this marketplace, and it still exists. I don't think it will exist past the end of the year, but where I was selling like shirts and things, which is lovely. And it was my first partner where I raised funds for somebody else. But the more I pivoted into coaching, the more I was like, that's money I don't need to be spending on that. I'm just maintaining something that literally gets no traffic. And that's stuff that I can learn to better advise my clients, though. And I've learned it through experience with what I'm doing now, like which ministries are most impactful and how do you build relationships versus, I was doing a virtual chicken barbecue with just throwing my t-shirts up on a website.
I was just thinking, like, you were doing a chicken barbecue. For us in the South, it's not a chicken barbecue. It's like a, what do you call it? Oh, what's the name? Potluck. You do potluck dinners, and everything is beige.
That's so real.
Everything is beige. It's just a table of beige, yeah. Green bean casserole is beige. Macaroni salad is beige. Yeah, awesome. I love what you're doing. I think it's really important, and it's really important in the church world and ministry world, but also in general. Nonprofits have a hard time, like, there's a better way to monetize than to beg people for money. Just like there's a better way for you to get clients than feeling like an MLM or feeling like the kind of MLM that people don't like, which is the
thank you. That's a better way to put it.
Yeah, and so you learned a better way to get clients that feels an integrity, that feels much more aligned to your personality. It feels more easeful. Packaged it better, selling it more consistently, quit one of your side hustles. Love that for you. And so what advice do you have in, like, how can other people, what advice do you have for someone who's looking to get started with selling coaching or services, and maybe they started a blog or they're kind of getting stuck in all these other actions? Like, what tips do you have for them to get started?
One of the best things that I think you told me was to go with what's aligned. Mm-hmm. And so I would come into the coaching session and be like, I don't want to write a blog post every week. I love talking to people on Facebook
and don't
people in other spaces. And you're like, maybe the weekly blog post isn't aligned to what you're doing. And so for somebody who's super anxious, I was like, oh, maybe you don't have to force yourself to do all of these things that feel disjointed. Like, figure out what's aligned. It's all about strengths-based stuff. So I'm gonna be super nerdy. I wrote the book on strengths-based stuff, and that's exactly what it is. Go with your strengths, go with your gut. You're gonna have to learn things and grow, but at least the way that you were teaching the small audience sales system, it wasn't. I actually have made friends along the way for this journey, and because you're starting to reach out to people and just ask them what they're doing and talk to them more. And so my network and my group of colleagues has grown from that in a way that enriches me. And so just go with what feels aligned. If you feel yourself saying, do I really have to do that? There's got to be a better way. And you're amazing at helping find that better way.
Yeah. It's interesting because my process for selling has changed so much, where I have a hard time doing things the way that I used to do them. And so, when I first launched the program, the way that I taught to do it was very rigid, and it worked. But some of my one-on-one clients were like, they would get done working with me and be like, all right, I need a break. And what I realized from that experience is like, okay, like this system works, and I will put my full faith in it, but the rigidity of it, what makes people make money more over time is that alignment, and not saying that it's easy all the time.
No,
because it still kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
But what I used to do in this rigid format used to work great for me, and I could force myself to do it, and now it's not working. And so knowing how to re-swizzle the system to work for you. And then I love what you said about you've made real connections and real friends. And I think when you're always approaching marketing from the perspective of getting a sale, people feel that energy. But when you're coming into it I am going to sell you things, you're welcome, and I also genuinely care, this may not be for you. And that happens to me all the time. Like, this is not for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be prospecting someone and I'll point them to a free challenge because they're not ready for anything else. So yeah, I love that. Any other tips or advice you want to share?
I have 2 little kids, and so self-care is a joke. Just and so like don't pressure yourself into self-care thinking like that'll make things all better, but sometimes you do need to take a break.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like you don't if you're feeling like you're forcing that square peg into that round hole, you just like it's okay to take a step back. And if you're in SAS, talk to Allison about it.
Yeah.
And then step back in. Like don't it's not going to burn down.
Yeah. It's like we're doing this forever. So you have to be able to take a break. I love that. Well, congratulations. I'm so excited for you. And you guys can go to affirmfundraising.com to find out more about Laurel's book. If you want to send your friends over there, I really believe in her process for, teaching churches and is it all nonprofits or is it ministry based?
It's mostly aimed at faith-based nonprofits. Yeah.
Faith-based, that's the terminology. Faith-based nonprofits. I really believe in what she's doing because I've seen both sides of it, and the potluck fundraisers are not very sustainable and they don't bring in that much money. Laurel teaches faith-based nonprofits to make money in ways that are actually like business focused on assets, focused on strengths, sustainable. And that's really important for if you're going to grow a ministry. You have to have money.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be MLM-y about it in a bad way. Not that all MLMs are bad.
I know.
Very
I
good.
say that. Sorry.
I know a couple people who are MLMs who are not, bad MLM-y, but very good. So you guys can go to affirmfundraising.com. If you want to learn more about the small audience sales system, you can go to affirmfundraising.com/SAS, which is an affiliate link that will support Laurel. So we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you very soon.